The Lectin Diet. History. In 1888, Peter Hermann Stillmark discovered the first lectin when he isolated ricin from the seeds of a castor bean, and he described this protein as an extremely toxic compound. When partially purified seed extracts were mixed with red blood cells, clumping of cells was observed. This would be called agglutination. Later research from Landsteiner and Robachek would demonstrate that many lectins are actually in fact non-toxic. Other studies highlighted the specific interaction between lectins and carbohydrate structures, thus proving that lectins possess carbohydrate binding activity. This led to the use of the term lectins rather than agglutinins, since not all lectins can agglutinate cells. Agglutination is a natural process. Sometimes it's a good thing and neutralizes the foreign invader. However, sometimes the consequences of agglutination can be more severe. Agglutinated red cells can cause clogs within various blood vessels. The clots and clogs can lead to circulation being cut off to parts of the body. Think clumping of red blood cells. This clumping can crack open or crack the blood vessels themselves. This can lead to the contents of the clots leaking out into the body. Since there is a high concentration of hemoglobin within the red blood cells that leaks out during agglutination, it can be toxic. Hemoglobin becomes dangerous when it is outside of the cell. Now you see why limiting or removing lectins can have its benefits from an advanced scientific origin. Lectins are by definition proteins that specifically recognize and bind to carbohydrate structures, but do not possess enzymatic activity. Lectins from plants have a minimum of one carbohydrate binding site that will recognize carbohydrate structures, either from the plant itself, known as endogenous, or from other materials, known as exogenous. These are glycan structures, which in layman's terms are basically sugar Legos. They form simple to complex carbohydrates known as monosaccharides or polysaccharides. Lectins interact with monosaccharides, polysaccharides, and more complex carbohydrate structures. In fact, lectins are common in plants and are part of our everyday diet as humans. For example, lectins are present in many foods such as beans, potatoes, peas, cereals, tomatoes, garlic, peppers, and bananas, to name a few. Although some lectins are known to cause nutritional deficiencies and allergic reactions in humans, the concentration of lectins in most foods is far too low to pose a threat to healthy individuals. Furthermore, soaking and cooking will destroy the lectin in foods with a high lectin content. This is also why you may have heard stories of your grandmother soaking tomatoes before putting them in her famous homemade sauce, or why we soak beans overnight, or why potatoes are soaked before cooking as well. One of the most famous proponents of this recently has been Dr. Gundry, MD. He has been the main guy pushing the anti-lectin movement in the past 5 years. So you've heard all this technical mumbo-jumbo. Some of you might be thinking, what does this mean? Well, to review in plain English, lectins are proteins found in certain foods that can cause some unwanted side effects when consumed. Lectins can cause a range of negative health effects, including digestive issues, inflammation, and nutrient deficiencies. While some people may tolerate them just fine, others may want to avoid them or at least limit their intake. This is the reason they may not be the best choice for your diet. A list of common foods that contain lectins are beans and legumes, such as lentils, chickpeas, and soybeans. Grains like wheat, barley, and rice. Nightshade vegetables like tomatoes, potatoes, and eggplants. Nuts and seeds like peanuts, cashews, and sunflower seeds. Shellfish like shrimp, crabs, lobster, and oysters. Fruits like apples, strawberries, and grapes. Certain types of dairy like milk, eggs, and cheese. Have you ever checked out the ingredients list of any food product these days? You'll notice certain foods listed in bold letters. These foods are the top 8 allergens, such as dairy, egg, wheat, soy, peanuts, tree nuts, fish, and shellfish. They are known to contain high levels of lectins. I bet you didn't know that there was a correlation to the most common human allergies on planet Earth and lectins. Some experts believe that this is not a coincidence, and that the presence of lectins in these foods may contribute to the development of allergies. While more research is needed to confirm this hypothesis, it's certainly something to be aware of if you have sensitivities or allergies to these foods. Some allergists say that exposing a child to a natural lifestyle, getting them to go outside a lot, having them around pet dander animals, and eating these foods will strengthen their immune system. So the best defense against this may be early exposure and continued exposure. There are studies out there that suggest this with a variety of allergies. However, what if you're an adult and you either already have these allergies or suspect you might need a diet change due to experiencing mysterious health problems? Well, first off, let's explore just what the effects of lectins do to the body. Common side effects of lectins include digestive issues like bloating, gas, and diarrhea, inflammation and joint pain, fatigue and low energy levels, skin problems like eczema, acne, and rashes, headaches and migraines, brain fog and difficulty concentrating, weight gain and difficulty losing weight, autoimmune disorders and other chronic health conditions. It's important to note that not everyone is sensitive to lectins, and the severity of symptoms can vary from person to person. However, if you experience any of these symptoms after consuming foods high in lectins, it may be worth considering reducing your intake. Keeping a daily log of what you eat and what your symptoms are is a great way to gauge just what may or may not be causing any health issues you have. Too often people assume one problem only to realize it's actually something quite different once an accurate diagnosis is done. Only a very small amount of people keep daily logs on their food intake, water intake, what time of the day they go to the bathroom, and how they feel upon waking, sleeping, and before and after meals with blood pressure readings and other diagnostic measurements included. I strongly encourage this approach whenever dealing with any health issue, and having your paperwork ready before you see your doctor, and keeping a log of a minimum of 6 months to a year before and after any treatments to make sure you fully understand just exactly what each change is doing to your body. Your body is going to be with you for the rest of your life. It's not something to guess with or go by feel. Use exact data whenever possible. This should be the bare minimum level of effort on your part. You'll notice that many of the foods that contain lectins overlap with other diets like the keto diet, which we covered in our previous video. Is there a way to do keto and avoid lectins? Well, you'll be happy to learn that you can actually be on any diet and avoid lectins, but it requires some work. No one said eating healthy was easy. There are a variety of ways to remove lectins and still enjoy some of these foods. For example, soaking your beans before eating them is key. Lectins are water-soluble and you'll have to soak them overnight and remove the water 2 to 3 times because the lectins will simply transfer into the water and then back into the beans. Start soaking your beans in the morning or afternoon on day 1, then change the water every 3 to 4 hours until bedtime. Leave them overnight, and then change the water again the next day once or twice before cooking them. If the water has been changed 3 times before you cook them and you're cooking them in new water, then you should have removed enough of the lectins for them to be safe. This is why I generally cook a week's worth of food at once and then portion them out so that I am not doing a ton of work all week long. Designate one day for cooking, pre-plan all your meals, and not only is it easier and cheaper, but all the prep work only needs to be done once. This saves you a ton of time in advance. You can even freeze the food and then bring it out for an entire month if you want to be super frugal and prepared. This rule applies to rice and other grains, as well as tomatoes. The next thing you should do is cook with a pressure cooker. These are easy to get these days and fairly affordable. What's great is that you can even combine these methods for better effectiveness, as neither method will remove 100% of lectins from your foods. The general idea here is that the higher temperatures and pressure from the pressure cooker will destroy most of the lectins. Take note that the lectins in wheat, oats, rye, barley, or meat are not going to be affected by this method. If you haven't noticed, in all of these methods, preparation of these foods goes a long way. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Another way to prepare your foods to reduce the lectin content in them is by peeling and deseeding them. Buying kitchen equipment to make this easier will be a wise investment. Boiling your tomatoes and potatoes for a minute makes the skin come off much easier. Scooping the seeds out of green peppers, tomatoes, and other nightshades can then be done. If you want to take your skills to the next level, try fermentation. Not only will you be removing the lectins in your food, but fermented foods create good gut bacteria, so you'll be killing two birds with one stone. Not only will you be reversing the harmful damage to your stomach from the inflammation caused by lectins, but you'll be adding probiotics to your stomach and boosting your immune system. Now that's a win-win. Keep in mind that once again, this doesn't kill all lectins, so pick your poison wisely. Mix and match appropriately. This works great on pickles and kombucha, which are usually already found in this form. Pickled eggs are a thing. They aren't to my taste, but if you do like them, try to include more of them. Eggs are nature's close to perfect food. Pickling them only makes them a superfood. You don't even need to worry about the cholesterol in the yolk, as it's good cholesterol. Fun fact is that you can actually live off eggs alone if you're in a pinch. Now the next part is going to shock you. Ever since the 1990s, I can remember every nutritionist telling you to eat whole grain bread. Wheat bread, 7-grain super bread. Restaurants started selling it. Subway began adding it. It was everywhere. Wheat toast and egg whites were all the rage. The thing is that these breads contain more lectins than their white bread counterparts. The increase in people eating these dirtier, darker grains has led to an increase in gluten sensitivities. Is that a coincidence? Gluten is considered an allergen. What are lectins activating in your body? Allergies. Now, I'm not a doctor or a researcher, but I'm simply pointing out that more study needs to be done on this. It is my personal thought that people are giving themselves gluten sensitivities by eating too much whole grain. In other countries around the world, they strip away what they call the hull and only use the white rice. This is done in Asian countries where rice has been a staple of their diet for 10,000 years. You won't find many people with gluten sensitivity there. I have placed an excellent study on the prevalence of gluten sensitivity in the description and how it relates to DNA and the consumption to wheat. So this is one case where a refined food is actually better for you if you're forced to make the choice. Sourdough with no added sugar that's made fresh from a bakery will be your best choice. I'm personally not a fan of sourdough, but to each their own. At the end of the day, it's all about finding the right balance that works for you and learning how to cook each food differently so that it tastes right. I've had many people tell me they don't like fish, a certain spice, or vegetables until I cook them, and I hide it in the food and cook it in a manner they have never had it. They will ask me, "Wow, that was really good. What was that I tasted? It was different." The rest is history from there. Once they learned I added onions and sauteed them in olive oil and pepper, and they weren't just raw and laid on top. Your adventure into lectins is going to open many doors for you on how to cook and prepare food so many different ways. And the more tools you have in your tool shed, the more diverse your diet will be, which will in turn lead you down the highway of health. Thanks for watching this episode of Diet Riot. Please let us know what subjects you'd like us to cover in the comments. Any diet requests, any exercise questions. We are a new channel and are working hard to make higher quality videos each week. We have a ton of knowledge to share with you and look forward to learning how to get that knowledge out to you in the most effective ways. We have set up a new Patreon and working on our own courses. One course will be on the most effective way to exercise and the other will be on the most effective diet. Combined, these two courses will be the definitive guide on building fitness and health. Look forward to great things to come.